Okay, so this video is going to serve as a bit of a overview of my previous training block, which would have been about 3 months ago now. The results of that training block, which had me work up to some RPE 9 singles. Some goings on and a bit of a vlog type entry for the stuff in between then and now. Then the build up, the trials and tribulations of my previous training block, and the results of the competition at the end. The comp at the end I will discuss kind of as we get to that footage. However, one thing that would be best to be noted now is I can't quite believe the levels of ups and downs and aches and pains and whatever that happened throughout that training block. But that being said, on the day itself, I probably had the best performance that I've had in recent times at a competition, which I find interesting. We're just going over a few different things here. So these are my RPE 9 build-ups, basically to a heavy RPE 9 single. So went 245, 255, 265. 265 I misgrooved, however I probably feel like it would have been there on the day, which we'll see through now. Then I went on to do a heavy bench single. I've been having sort of aggravated pec for a very long time, so to see 155 move pretty well is a good thing. Although in my recent comp and before then I had actually aggravated it again, so it'd be nice to see if I can build up a good training cycle without all the aggro from my pec, but I guess we'll wait and see with that. On this here 265, I feel like my hip shifted back massively and my chest collapsed, or as Mike T would call it, the squish. I get a bit squished by it, so I'm not entirely sure what will help me do that. It moved pretty well out the bottom. I just get squished and fold over, so that's that. I went for a bit of a YOLO attempt at north of 300 on the deadlift, which is the first time I'd ever done that. So with this, I'm pretty happy. So obviously my form breaks down quite a lot on this, on the first attempt at 302. It was a huge psychological barrier more than anything, and to see it just move regardless of kind of form was pretty good. And then on the second one, I was a lot more patient, a lot more centered, a lot more calm, and it moved a lot better. You can probably see from the second angle as well. You know, it's not as like, you know, grip and rip type of attitude. It's much more of a push away from the floor, and that helps tremendously towards lockout. I think in the first attempt I just kind of relax, and that gets the better of me for sure. Now the bar I'm pulling on is like an old power bar, but where the rings insert on the bar, so where the collar and the ring attach, that's kind of gotten a bit skew with. So it's a lot more whippy than say a power bar. However, you know, no complaints really there. This was to me more of a psychological barrier than anything. So the next little bit I want to talk about is just the I guess like a vlog type entry from all the little bits after this. So following on from this, I'd actually hosted my first ever powerlifting seminar, which was really cool. Basically just taught the guys the movements, how to do stuff, real basic things on programming and whatever else, and taught the guys that were there, about 10 people, just the basics of powerlifting, things like breathing, bracing, rooting, etc., which went really well. And then following on from that, roughly sort of 4 weeks later, elite-bodyworks, where I work, they had moved from their 2,000 square foot facility to our brand new 6,000 square foot facility. So Finally, we're on to training highlights from the training block that I just went through, and then the results of the competition that I was in. Rather annoyingly, the audio file got corrupted on both those video clips. However, following on from this was my competition. So the idea behind this competition for me was just to get the qualifying total of 625. So what me and Bryce had basically discussed was going in and taking your first attempt as if it was your last warm-up, and then your second attempt as if it would be your opener, and so on. Throughout this training cycle, I had sort of lower back QL kind of pain while squatting, and just kind of lower back pain in general, as well as my pec. So this meet really for me was more about just trying to go in and get a qualifying total. However, I do think that the lack of performance anxiety, I suppose, on this competition really did actually help me perform better. As me and Bryce have discussed before, when I can approach a competition and just have fun and just enjoy, lifting weights, and that's kind of the whole reason that I'm there, I tend to do much better. And people, that were kind of there on the day with me were joking around. They couldn't believe how relaxed and how much fun I was having in the warm-up room. But that's how I perform best, and I think that's an important thing for other people to recognise. You don't have to necessarily get amped up or get angry or whatever to perform at your best. And sports psychology is an interesting subject that, admittedly I don't know an awful lot about, but I've kind of found out what works at least better for me than getting psyched up and angry and all those sorts of things. Calm and almost stoic behaviour for me on the platform tends to benefit me the most. So I'll let these clips run through, and then, yeah.
Drop it, Jay. Go, Paige. Go, PJ.
Down. 8.